If we could move that up a week, from a staff perspective, there's no problem there at all. But need y'all to make a decision on that.
Is anybody?
I'm fine with it.
I'm sorry, Keith. We can see your mouth moving, but we can't hear you.
A lot of people say that. I said I am personally in favor of moving it to the 14th because my birthday is on the 21st.
Michelle, you good?
I'm good.
And Wallace, I think you said you were too.
I'm fine.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all for that consideration.
Jay, cancel that cake order for Keith.
We can just turn it into a week-long celebration.
Noted. I thought we were going to combine the cake with the Dunkin' booth thing. I have to rethink the whole plan here, but we'll come back to you on that.
Cake on.
Bill, if y'all don't mind, it's related to board meeting schedules. And Bill, you and I talked about this briefly on Friday. I've got a little more information, so I wanted, let me see if I can get sort of a straw poll on this. Members, as you know, we had our retreat in February, and we had a virtual retreat, of course, and we had originally planned to have our retreat at the Carolina Inn in Chapel Hill. The Inn has been very gracious about continuing to roll over the deposit we made. And they most recently have agreed that they would continue to let us use that deposit through the end of this calendar year. So I asked Leslie to check with the Carolina Inn about its availability to host us in November. And this would be, we would arrive, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this. I'm trying to just give you concept, but I wanted to see what y'all's feelings and availability shouldn't be a problem, but about us having an in-person retreat in November at the Carolina Inn, the same plan we had last year, which was if folks could arrive if they wanted to on the Sunday night. Then we would do certain trainings on the Monday, which would be the ordinary Monday before meeting Monday, and then have the retreat itself on the normally scheduled Tuesday. Is that something y'all are interested in? The Carolina Inn is available. I know that you all wanted to invite Representative Sasser. The legislature, God willing, will be adjourned by that point, and Wayne is available then. So if y'all are inclined to go ahead and do that and do it in person in November, Leslie and I can get to work on nailing that down.
Jay, I'd just like to point out the workplace meeting for the NABP is the 16th and 17th of November. Those are the dates for that. So that kind of bothers me. I didn't realize that we might be doing.
I didn't either, and I apologize, Ashley. I've got too many things.
Yeah, and who knows if I'll even get on there, but that just worries me because I would miss a retreat and a Board of Pharmacy meeting if the plans were to do that.
How about this? Let me, knowing that, we've got time, obviously. We have plenty of time. We're going to know the committee and task force assignments from Caroline before the July meeting. So let's wait and see when those come out. Hopefully there will be a conflict because you will be on that task force, but then we don't necessarily have to have it on those specific dates. Let's just hold. Let me see if I can encapsulate it this way. Y'all are interested in having a retreat, having an in-person retreat in November in Chapel Hill. That time frame roughly is acceptable. We might need to move a little bit in one direction or the other if we've got a conflict. Is that sort of where we are sitting? Leslie and I can get to work on specifics. Looks like everybody's nodding.
That works for me. I just hate to miss an opportunity
No,
there.
no.
That's
Nor
kind of
should
something
you.
we've been working on.
And
So
it's too important, and there's no reason in the world why we can't make both happen. So no problem there. Okay, we'll start working on that and have an update for you at the July meeting. Bill, thank you for tolerating that tour. Just a reminder, NABP District 3 meeting is now up and open for registration. Cindy can fill in if there's anything she needs to, but obviously we're happy to make to do your registrations and any hotel arrangements you need us to do. Just let Leslie and Cindy know about that. Similarly, Maltagon is open. That's October 17th through the 20th. Now, ordinarily, that would conflict in part with our October meeting, but October will be the first meeting that is reserved, or the first month that's an off month that will be reserved for committee stuff. So we can figure out what I would suggest is as many of you who are interested, or let me put it this way, if you're interested in going to Maltagon, get in touch with Cindy about that and plan to go, and then we can schedule committees based on which committees have work to do and what folks are available here in Chapel Hill to do it. So just touch base with Cindy on that. Cindy, if you're on, did I misstate, malstate anything?
You're
I
good.
must not. All right, Cindy says I'm good, and she will
Wow.
tell me if I'm not. So,
Okay.
that's it for the meeting update. That leaves us then with consent agenda, and then we do have matters, of course, for closed session, which would be deliberative process and potential summary suspension.
At this point, we're going to consider the consent agenda. I'm going to recommend that we move one of the two consent or pre-conference hearings to take it out of the consent agenda for further discussion. And presumably that will be in closed session, correct, Clint?
No, that can't be in closed session.
So
No,
that'll
that'll have to be
closed
an open session.
session.
But all you have to do is ask for it to be off, and we'll take it off and discuss it right after the approval of the remaining consent agenda items.
Okay, well, I would request that the Pungo River Pharmacy Scott Ellis case be taken off the consent agenda for separate discussion.
Thus, it shall be done.
So is there any other, or is there any questions or comments about the remainder of the consent agenda?
I do have a question about the other letter of warning. It looks like from my reading that we sent a letter of warning to the permit holder and the pharmacist. What about the technician in question that was proposing as a pharmacy student? What was the discipline for that person, or if
Well, Andy, there's nothing we can do
Okay.
to Zach Thomas because Zach Thomas never held a registration, or he held a technician registration, which lapsed, and because he characterized himself as a permit. However, what we did do was sue him and obtain an injunction that prohibits him from working in any pharmacy unless he is qualified to do so. So his situation has been dealt with.
Okay, thank
Clint, did I get that right?
You did, and while you were talking, there is one issue that occurred to me, which is that Ms. Duggan should recuse herself from consideration of that agenda item, as well as whoever was at the PHC. Oh, Michelle.
Okay.
Okay, so we need a motion for the consent agenda minus the one we're going to talk about. So motion for that.
Is there a second? Wallace seconds. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote to approve the consent agenda. If you vote to approve, indicate so by saying something affirmative. Andy?
Something affirmative.
Ashley is recused. Keith is in favor of?
Bill, you look great today. Something affirmative.
That was affirmative. Thank you. Michelle's recused. Wallace?
I'll just stick with the aye.
Thank you. So the motion passes to approve the consent agenda minus the Scott Ellis issue, minus Ashley and Michelle having to recuse. Okay, so at this point, I would like for us to have further discussion on the Scott Ellis license number 9024 Pungo River Pharmacy permit 04520 that was heard by Michelle. I will mention at this point that I contacted Michelle and told her that I thought we would benefit from further discussion, and she was just fine with that. Mr. Pinion, how do we proceed?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about what my take was on the pre-hearing conference, and you can take whatever you want from that. The amount diverted was 11,000, which is a lot, but not a lot in the scheme of what we have seen diverted almost exclusively. It has been my experience at pre-hearing conferences that board members recommend letters of warning if there is a first diversion for a pharmacist manager and permit, unless there are aggravating circumstances. Of course, he was not minding the store as well as he could have, but that's not an aggravating circumstance in a case like this, because there's always some lack of supervision that leads to the diversion. There were not really any other aggravating circumstances. The technician was not registered, but he had called her a technician in training, and she had not been there that long. So theoretically, she was not required to be registered. There were some delays and inaccuracies in eventually getting to an audit number, but he eventually got there. So it's my experience that this recommendation is completely in line with everything that every other board member has done in similar circumstances. So that's for y'all to consider.
The two things that caught my eye were, one, the unregistered technician, which Clint has sort of mitigated to some degree, and the number of dosage units. I thought it was worthy of consideration, and in my mind, this also helps all of us understand perhaps the mechanism for bringing a case that's in the consent agenda more out in the open. But regardless, Michelle, is there anything that you can add or you want to elaborate on?
Clint pretty much summed it up, and I was trying to stay kind of middle of the road. I got the feeling from him, well, we did ask, it was the first time, the only time he's had an issue with it. Did want to have something in there that would a mechanism that would allow for him to make sure that he is tracking it better. But I have actually participated in, which is why I'm glad I asked to participate in some of those. And in looking at the other ones and the way the other ones were done, I felt like this was the right way to go. I initially did think that 11,000 was a lot, but in speaking with council, it's my understanding that it's worthy of looking at, but it's not a big number in terms of what it could be and what has happened in the past. So that's how I came up with the letter of warning.
Do we know which controlled substances were involved?
I don't recall right off the top of my head.
I don't recall that either. It was in the report. I mean, it's a lot, but the evidence suggests she was stealing 500, 1,000 bottle units, and so it doesn't take a whole lot of trips out of the pharmacy to get to 11,000 without.
They were, Bill, I believe, opioids and benzodiazepines.
Was there some evidence that he's a fairly new pharmacist manager?
If memory serves me correctly, he took this pharmacy over from his dad. And so I think he's been at it a while and he's never had a problem. I think, his guard was a little down, a new person he's training, and something happened. I would have felt different if he had been more involved with it. He showed up, in my opinion, he showed up with counsel, which in my opinion says he took this very seriously and warranted the attention. So I felt like that a letter of warning was warranted.
And is it true that he said that part of his inattention had to do with COVID and going outside to administer vaccines or some other patient care related activity that took him out of the pharmacy temporarily?
I don't recall him being out of the pharmacy, outside of the pharmacy.
Maybe out away from prescription.
Yeah, because there were some distractions, yes. Clint, unmute yourself, Clint. Unmute yourself.
He said that during that time period, he didn't have the store open and didn't do counseling back at the pharmacy area. He went to the front. And so it was an unusual set of circumstances for him to have taken him outside of the pharmacy area for brief periods of time because of COVID.
Board members, any other questions, concerns, discussions? So our choices at this point are to approve the pre-hearing conference recommendation for Michelle, or what?
Well, that's a good question, Bill. I guess if you did not approve it, you could either schedule it for a hearing or you could suggest a different proposed consent order that I could send to them to see if they accepted it. So I would say the initial vote is accept or not accept. And if you don't accept, then somebody will have to move what you would want to do instead.
Thank you for that. Well, is there a motion?
Dang it, my mute's a little slow. I make the motion we accept it as per Michelle, recommended.
Second.
I second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor, indicate your preference. Andy?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aren't I recused from this?
Yeah, you're recused, Michelle.
We already know what your wishes are.
Your recommendation is noted duly.
Wallace?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And so the letter of warning will go to Mr. Ellis, and we shall move to the next topic.
That's great. The next thing would be to go into closed session for deliberative discussion and for potential summary suspension. And to members of the public who are attending virtually, once the board comes out of closed session, its only additional action will be to adjourn the meeting. So if the board goes into closed session, members of the public will be dropped off of the call, and there will be no public business discussed after that point.
Thank you to everyone who attended. I'll entertain a motion for closed session.
So moved.
Seconded by Keith and Andy. All in favor for closed session? Ashley,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Keith,
Aye.
Michelle, and Wallace. Thank you, Michelle. So noted. Okay, we're now in closed
Oh,
session.
Well, let's give it just a minute.
Do
And
we need a
Antoine,
5-minute break?
yeah, we could take that, and by that point, members of the public will be off the call.
Now let's resume at around 1:20 or 1:25 or so, give or take.
You got it.
And
Thanks,
Jay, there
Bill.
were no comments as well.
Got it. Thank you, Antoine.
All right.
All right. See y'all.